This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm here with Victor Ibarra, who is joining us all the way from London, UK today, usually resides in sunny Spain, and we are going to be tasting, finally today, a bottle of the Gran Reserva 2016 Imperial from Cune, a wine you have been making for quite some time, Victor.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, we've been making this wine for just over 100 years. So it's something we're very proud of. I think it was the first Super Rioja to be produced by us or by anybody for that matter. And it was a wine that was conceived at the time by my forefathers as really the best that they could produce. Now, everybody does that nowadays. Everybody, gives you the best of the best of the best. But in those days, in early 1910s, not everybody had that approach. You just produce what you could. There wasn't a philosophy of I want to do a small amount of the absolute best that could be made in these vineyards in this part of Spain. So I'm very happy and very, very proud and very lucky that they decided to do that, because what we have is a wine that has been made consistently ever since, and it has a loyal following across the globe. So very happy because of that.
Now, what makes this Gran Reserva a Gran Reserva? There are certain rules and regulations around that kind of labeling, but what makes it a Gran Reserva at Cune?
Right. Well, the first thing I should say is that we only produce Imperial in vintages that we consider excellent. Now, that's a luxury that most people can't afford to do that, most wineries, because they need, as you would expect, they need to produce a wine every year. We have the Cune wine for that. That's a different wine of ours, and that is produced every year. But Imperial, only if it's excellent. So you will never see a bad bottle of Imperial, at least not one that has been stored properly. So what is Gran Reserva? What does that even mean? Well, to us, Gran Reserva means the best of the best, and it means something that has been aged for a minimum of 3 years in wood. The legal requirement is less than that, but we give it extra aging in wood because this wine has to have a certain consistency to it and a certain identity that makes it as Imperial, and that requires a really lengthy aging in barrel.
And you say you make this only in exceptional years. Over the last decade, how many times have you made this wine?
Well, let me see. Let me tell you the years that we skipped. Perhaps it's easier that way. So
Sure.
Let me see. We're going to skip 2023, okay, last year's vintage, which wasn't that good. So we're drinking the 16 now, but the 23 we won't be producing. We didn't produce the 2013, didn't produce the 2006, 2003, 2002. We didn't produce 1997, 1993, 1992. So you could see there's quite a few years. Yeah, I mean, as we go back in time, I could go on. There's quite a few years that we skip. Yeah, and it's okay. We can live with that. The 16 that you have in your glass right now, and that I have in mine, is actually it was a fantastic vintage for us, and I think for the entirety of Rioja. It was marked by a very long growing season, which to me is a hallmark of all great vintages.
Yeah.
And it was a cold winter, lots of snow, lots of rainfall. Summer was hot, but it wasn't excessively hot. Didn't rain, and we harvested late. We started very end of September and finished at the end of October, which surprises some people. They think we do everything a lot sooner, but that's how we do it. And it just turned out fantastically. We're lucky that our vineyards are at high elevation, so that sort of delays everything quite a lot. But all in all, it's a beautiful vintage. It's one of the best, I think, since of the recent years, and it has that hallmark Imperial sort of churchy nose. And a lot of people say, "But what are you talking about?" But to me, if you smell it, it reminds me of a Gothic cathedral from Europe. It has that incense.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah, it has that incense. That is textbook classic Imperial. It has that on the nose. It has a velvet feel to it, both in the nose and also in the mouth. If you want it, it's a fist in a silk glove. That's a pathetic phrase, isn't it? But it kind of describes the wine a bit.
I do get something that I was quite surprised by, which I hope you don't find this too offensive, but there's a kind of meatiness or a promise of umami that I'm getting when I'm tasting this. It sort of it tells your brain that this is going to be a savory wine, and I really enjoy that.
I think it's I am so tired of fruit bombs that is just jammy and sweet, and alcoholic, and you have a glass and that's it. You don't want any more. And I realize and I acknowledge that a lot of high-end reds are made that way nowadays. But everywhere I go, when I sit with people that drink wine, they tell me that they're tired of these massive wines. They want something which is more elegant, more delicate, fresher. Now, that's not to say that it's less complex and you know, there's not much going on. There's certainly a lot of things going on. This savoriness that you describe in this wine is beautiful because it encourages you to have another sip, which is great. I think you should do that. It encourages you to drink the wine with food, which you should. I think all great wines need to be drunk with some food. They complement each other. Yeah. And what food would I have in mind here? Of course, meats, any variety. Lamb is the typical, but
Yeah.
hey, you can't go wrong with steaks of any kind. Stews. I have this with fish often as well. It's a versatile wine, but it comes into its own with lamb, with stews, anything that requires a bit of the savoriness and the acidity in the wine to sort of to basically blend and melt in your mouth. That's the idea. But it's also, you know, it's savory, but it's also it's so approachable as well. It is such a beautiful wine, even at this age when it's so young. Yeah. And people say, what are you talking about? 16, you know, the wine I drink from Napa is 22 vintage.
Yeah.
And well, great, you know, I'm sure it's lovely. But these wines, we release them late so that you enjoy the complexity of the aged wine. But the longer it ages for, the better it will be. And that's the idea. Yeah. It's like great movie actors. The really good ones, they get better and better over time. They don't fade out when they turn 25. And that should be the same with wine, I think.
I hear you on that one. When you're speaking about longevity with something like this, if someone was buying this, they could drink it right now, open it up at a dinner party, impress all their guests, take it to a dinner party, impress all the hosts.
Of course, yeah,
Or
absolutely, yeah.
they could drink it all by themselves. But if they were choosing to lay this down with this particular vintage, the 16, what would you say?
Well, listen, to me, in my mind, and I shouldn't say this, but I've told you in the past, I'm a terrible salesperson. The best Imperials are not the ones that I'm making now. To me, the best Imperials are the ones that we made in the 50s and the 40s. And that's what we try to emulate with this wine. And those wines were phenomenal. They've been rated 100 points, and they are magnificent. They will keep getting better. If you ever get your hands on an old vintage of Imperial, we'll grab it and drink it, or put it aside and drink it later on. But experience it, because these wines do get better over time. So if you lay it down in the right conditions, I think it can only get better, because I'd be failing if that wasn't the case. It has to be the case, and it is. I know it firsthand because I've drunk every vintage of Imperial that we have ever produced. I've been drinking it since I've been running Cune for my family for the last 20 odd years, and that's just how it is. Of course, not every wine is perfect, but certainly it's what we strive for, and it's what we had in the past. I'm sure of this.
Well, Victor, I appreciate your honesty and your conviviality tasting through these wines today. Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution once again. Next time you're in Toronto, Ontario, I look forward to breaking bread with you then.
I shall take you up on that one. Thank you so much, Jamie, and cheers.
Take care. Bye for now.
You too. Bye-bye.